And welcome to the Everyday Tarot Podcast, your deep dive into the divine wisdom of the tarot. I'm your host, Camille A. Saunders, your hallowed high priestess, tarot reader, and professional witch. And today I'm talking about Hilary Duff's latest album, Luck or Something, as well as her Lucky Me tour. Whether you're a seasoned tarot reader or just starting to explore, this podcast offers insights, intuitive messages, and practical advice drawn from the cards. Each episode is designed to help you connect with your inner wisdom, find clarity in your decisions, and tap into the energy of the universe. Tune in every Monday to check out the latest episode. So, some announcements. If you want to carry the magic with you, the Everyday Tarot merch collection is here, and I'm wearing my shirt. I got it this week. I'm in a white crop top today, so if you've ever found comfort in an episode, discovered a new perspective through a card pull, or felt seen by the community, this is a way to take a little of that magic with you wherever you go. Every purchase helps support the podcast and allows me to continue creating free tarot content, sharing card wisdom, and building a space where tarot is accessible, intuitive, and truly for everyone. Thanks so much for listening, sharing episodes, leaving reviews, and supporting the work in all the ways that you do. It means more than you know. So if you want to match me or check out the other merch options, you can carry the magic of Everyday Tarot with you and support the podcast while you do. Check the link in the show notes for the merch link. So other ways you can support the podcast are you can join the Everyday Tarot family on Patreon. You'll get exclusive tarot content like access to New Moon Collective tarot readings I do, get to meet other listeners in our members only chat, get access to bonus resources like my tarot card crafting workshop and tarot spreads I'm sharing, and a chance to help shape the future of the podcast. Also started last month, you will get an exclusive Patreon tarot card reading after each episode. So every Monday when the episodes drop, everyone, will get those live. Those are for free wherever you find your podcast. So you can check out the podcast, the Everyday Tarot Podcast, on YouTube or Spotify to watch the video. And then if you head on over to Patreon, if you are become a paid member, you can get access to an additional card reading after every episode. So they'll go along with the episode topic. So, in the episode, we'll have the main discussion. I do my tarot card pull at the end, and then the Patreon exclusive reading is usually going to be about like any blocks or challenges that are coming up this week, and I'll pull a card on that topic. Today, we're going to do a special one that will be, so I'll get into it more, but I'm going to be kind of reviewing Hilary Duff's Luck or Something album today. We're going to match tarot cards to all of the songs. And then for the Patreon exclusive, I'm going to talk about one of her iconic, earlier musical songs that she's created over the last 25 years of her musical career. And I will match a tarot card to that. So that will be our extra card pull for today. So if you want to check out, you can always go to the Everyday Tarot Podcast on Patreon, and you can join the link through the show notes to become a member of the Everyday Tarot Patreon family, which is a paid offer, but you can also always go over there to catch the episodes. They do get released on there for free in the audio as well. And then I'm occasionally posting as well on there. So that's like the one-stop shop place to go. I am still doing pay what you can tarot readings through July, so you can grab those now. You'll get a 30-minute virtual video reading with me. Afterwards, I'll send you a full write-up of the cards, themes we discussed, images of the cards that I pulled during the reading, and a recording of it so you can always refer to it later. Free ways you can support the podcast are listening, leaving a review, and subscribing or following in your favorite podcast app. You can join my newsletter list where you can get my Hallowed Tarot spread, which is a workbook, a spread that I created just for my Hallowed High Priestess business. And in my newsletter, you'll get the most up-to-date info on upcoming events, presentations, musings, and info and photos of my day-to-day life. If you want to be a guest, you can fill out my guest inquiry form if you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the podcast. You can also always email me, me@CamilleASaunders.com, if there's someone you would love to see on the podcast and you want me to reach out to them, or if you want to recommend them. And again, you can find the links for any of these offers in the show notes or for free on Patreon, in addition to the images of the cards I pull in each episode. All right, so with all of that out of the way, today I'm discussing Hilary Duff's newest album. So after taking an 11-year break from music, Luck or Something. So if you don't know, maybe you're younger than me. I'm a millennial. I grew up with Hilary Duff, so she was a Disney Channel kid. She was like a child actor. She starred in the Lizzie McGuire show from 2001 to 2000. She was in a show sort of more recently called Younger, where she played Kelsey from 2015 to 2021. So I would say those are her like bigger TV performances where she's the main character. She was Lizzie McGuire in the Lizzie McGuire show. I'm going to be pulling a lot of info from Wikipedia today, so I'll link to that for her. So movies she's done are the Lizzie McGuire movies. So as the show was coming out, I think a year or two later, they created a Lizzie McGuire movie where the character goes to Italy with her school field trip group and fun things happen. These were all kind of like Disney Channel movies, I think. So there's a Lizzie McGuire movie. There was Cadet Kelly, where she plays a girl that ends up having to go to like a military school because of her dad or something. Anyway, she becomes like a cadet there and does a performance, which was fun. She was in Cinderella Story, which is like a modern retelling of Cinderella, which had Michael Murray. So very popular at the time, with Jennifer Coolidge as well as like the evil stepmother. So very fun. My favorite, I mean, I love the Lizzie McGuire movie, iconic, but is Raise Your Voice, where she plays I was gonna say like a suburban girl, but not even. I think she like lives in like sort of rural parts of maybe California. I don't remember now. Anyways, she applies and goes to a like music program school for the summer, and becomes like learns how to become a really good singer there. And of course, it's like a kind of coming of age story, starts with tragedy, ends with her kind of like coming into herself. That was definitely my favorite to like rewatch as a kid. And then she was also in Cheaper by the Dozen with Steve Martin. That was like a remake that came out, I think, in probably the like 2005 to 2010. So she was one of the siblings in that. She kicked off her music career in 2003 with the album Metamorphosis. She released in 2004 a self-titled LP, and then in 2007 she released Dignity, and she sold 15 million copies worldwide. And then also, again, she's been in TV and film. Kind of the most recent thing was in Younger, although when I was on her Wikipedia page, she actually has something that's being filmed with Hulu right now that I haven't heard. Pretty Ugly, it's called. That was announced in 2025. So I don't know what's going on with that. You could look that up if you're interested. It's based off a book, and she's starring and executive producing it. So she's done a lot of things. She also has had like fragrance lines, and she's written fiction books. I would say she's done a lot. She was in a lot of other kind of like TV or movie, smaller performances. But was definitely doing a lot of music stuff for a while. So it was very exciting to me as a millennial. And she announced her new album in like kind of fall of last year, and that is Luck or Something. So she released the single Mature is the song on November 6th, 2025. And then it was followed on January 15th, 2026 with her second single Roommates, both from the album. And then February 20th of 2026, her album titled Luck or Something was released. So, it's been out a couple months now. She is with Atlantic Records. It says they dubbed her album the boldest, most self-assured project to date. She did like a small tour in January to 2026 called the Small Rooms Big Nerves Tour. So she did like small capacity theater tour in London, Brooklyn, Toronto, LA, Las Vegas, and like kind of sold out immediately with small rooms. And then that was probably, her trying to figure out, are people interested in this? And then right before the album came out, she announced the Lucky Me tour on February 12th. So the album came out on the 20th to support her new album, Luck or Something. And it started last month, June 2026. and it goes all the way through February 2027. So I will be seeing it very soon. I'll be seeing it on July 14th, which will have already happened by the time you hear this. But for me, as I'm recording this, has not happened yet. So I'm very excited. So this has been fun prep work for me to start immersing myself in. I mean, I've listened to the album a couple different times, I guess a lot, right when it first came out. And then like maybe not as quite as much recently. Listened to it, the whole thing a couple times today. And then as I was doing my research and prep work for doing this, she also, like, since the full album came out, she re-recorded several of her like previous hit songs on bonus tracks of the Luck or Something like album that they're gonna release like on record on a limited record store day. They came out April 18th, and it's like each track is then called like Mine. So it's like the version, it's like the Taylor's version version for her of some of her older songs. I know she has Come Clean on there. I've listened to it a couple of times, but not like a ton. I'm gonna have to look now so that I can reference it. But yeah, so if you were ever like, a big fan of hers, she just released it called Mine, and yeah, it has Wake Up, So Yesterday, What Dreams Are Made Of, which is from the Lizzie McGuire movie, Sparks, Come Clean, Why Not, and With Love. And then each one has like the parenthetical for Mine on it. So yeah, so that's exciting. So again, you can check those out if you were a fan of hers back in the day and want to hear her mature version of some of the songs, or just her voice now. Before we get into every song and matching them with tarot cards, the other interesting thing I found, so on one of her songs she talks about sort of like disparagingly that I think maybe her husband now. She says, I know your need to disagree. I know how you hate the vegan shit and tarot cards, which are like, she's sort of like, I would say sort of like famously more into. She actually has chickens in her backyard, so I guess she probably eats chicken eggs, but that's on the song Tell Me That Won't Happen. So she's into tarot, and then I was looking at it online because I was like, oh, has she been quoted talking about tarot? It seems like she's like posted spreads she's done on Instagram before. But the other thing is that right now on her tour, the backstage VIP people that pay for that, for the tickets, during her VIP sessions with fans, there's like a altar basically in the back that all the fans get to come and like come to. And she actually has like Hilary Duff tarot cards that are not available anywhere. And they have like quotes from her movies and different things, or like lyrics on them. And that she like has seemingly a whole deck like about her, and it's like very stylized. I really like it. So I'll link to a Reddit thread where people are posting some of those cards. So anyone that goes gets a VIP ticket for her concerts, I guess, gets to go and like you just pick from like the table of cards, so everyone gets to go home with one, which is super cool. But yeah, some of them are, so like this one, yeah, they have like images sort of maybe like loosely of her. They're like drawings, very like pink and gold, and again like has like affirmations or quotes from her from things she's been in, or song lyrics on them, and then has different like imagery on there. So this one says, look yourself in the mirror and say, you're a bad bitch, you got this. And then at the bottom it says Hillary Duff 2026, and she has her own like, I guess I could share it right now. But again, these are taken from Reddit, so these are not, I do not own these. But yeah, so here's like an example of one. So you see up here, it's got HD for Hilary Duff. And then her quote here with Hillary Duff 2026 at the bottom. What you do might change, but who you are never has to. So this is, I guess she did a commencement, address commencement at Northeastern. Your life is going to be full of luck or something. So that's kind of a reference to her her album here. So we see this different kind of persons. Yeah, here someone's talking about that they're a VIP. Get to see that. Here's another image that there's a couple different quotes for. So this is from the album Fly, or maybe the song Fly. In a moment, everything can change. For a minute, all the world can wait. Let go of your yesterday. And here's some other quotes with the same image. So yeah, it sort of says down here, like what they are. Wake up. Which again, I think are different songs she has. Okay. So I'll link that thread in the show notes if you want to go look. People will probably keep adding to it since the tour has kind of just kicked off. But yeah, I just wanted to share that. So I love that she has the connection to tarot, and now like seemingly has kind of like had someone or herself made her own like deck sort of that at least is kind of themed with the tour. I think also a lot of her merch for this tour are kind of like witchy tarot like looking. So it seems like she's into that. And I know on one of the songs she also talks about like going to a psychic. And I think when she was doing press for her album, she actually talked about Aaron Carter showing up in a psychic reading that she had because she dated him. And they were kind of, yeah, he's like featured in one of her episodes of Lizzie McGuire. Anyway, so just kind of interesting there. Okay, so let's get back into it. So the album Luck or Something has 11 songs on the main album. Of course, I just talked about the kind of like mine version that got released that has her re-records. But yeah, so let's get into it. So for this, I wrote down all the songs and like listened to them. I've like read a bit about some of them, or just from the lyrics, or just when she was doing press for the album, she's talked a little bit about some of the songs. So I consumed some of that content. So some of them, it seems like she's talked about. Some of them will be like making some guesses on about what they're about, or kind of what their connection to tarot would be. But I will be forthright in saying that for this particular one, so like I said, I wrote down all the songs and kind of made notes about them and like put some quotes for the lyrics that I could refer to. And then I just like went ahead and pulled 11 tarot cards. So for the Florence and the Machine and the Iluka episodes, those ones I picked very specific decks that just like the imagery really aligned with the album. For this one, I thought I just wanted to use kind of like a tarot deck that other people could kind of relate to. This is the Snag Tarot that I've been using kind of all the time in my recent episodes, where I can show you in the PDF for the guide, which is very fun. But yeah, I just went ahead and I pulled 11 cards, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, yeah, I feel like they relate. So I'm going to be like making the connection between the tarot card and the songs live, I would say. So that will be kind of like fun and different than some of the other ones where I like chose the tarot cards that went with the songs before I started the podcast, or kind of like I went through the deck and picked specific cards because of the imagery or like the messaging. But for this one, yeah, I'm not totally sure why, but it just kind of like that's what made sense to me at the moment. So yeah, so that's always something you could do. I listened to a podcast and have for a long time called Mugglecast about Harry Potter. And they used to do a thing called Make the Music Connection, where they would like play a clip from a song, I think, or just say a song, and then they would have to like connect it to Harry Potter somehow. And so I'm going to be doing that basically, but with this album, Luck or Something. All right, so let's start out here. So I will share my screen once we get into the cards themselves. So the first song is called Weather for Tennis, and it's sort of like, I would say metaphorically about tennis, that's kind of about this like back and forth in relationships and conflict. She sort of sounds like she's talking about her first husband. She got married young and had a kid fairly young, in her like early 20s. And then they got divorced shortly after. And then she got married again later and has now had 3 kids with him and has a kid with her ex-husband. I know she was a kid of divorce also. And so she talks about that in this. But she says, I keep the peace because I'm a kid of divorce and you're the starter of wars. That's like one of the early lyrics. She talks about kind of like the arguments they would get into. And she says, you calling me batshit is the fastest antibiotic for thinking you're different this time. And then she really sounds like, I don't know, she talks a lot about like having gone to therapy and kind of working through like a lot of the trauma of like relational trauma of being a kid of divorce and then kind of like having her own divorce fairly early on and like intentionally separating and kind of like conscious uncoupling at the time and then knowing that okay, well also we're going to be raising a kid and passing him back and forth and so she talks about I can know it's all insecurity and then still take it personal. Why do I care this much? If it ain't the weather for tennis, then guess we can argue until dinner time. And as I was listening to it, like for the last time when I was making notes for this, I was like, I wonder if someone like literally said this to her at some point. Like it sounds almost like, again, in this lyric, she's kind of like, basically like, oh, if we don't have anything else to do, or if we can't figure out anything else to do, like, it's not the weather for tennis. So, like, we'll just argue until dinner time. And how, like, that was just a large part of their relationship, I think. And she has talked openly about that again when she was kind of doing press for her album. And it is pretty, like, I would say she has a song called Mature, which we'll talk about, but it is very like her in her like 30s, late 30s. I'm trying to remember how old she is at this point. She's 38. So yeah, her in her late 30s kind of like reflecting on like everything she's done in like relationships and now trying to figure out like, okay, like how do I feel about some of these things? And yeah, it's just like very interesting that like I think the tennis is kind of the metaphor for the back and forth and passing it back and forth, but I'm just like it's so very specific that I'm like curious if that was literally said to her at one point like in a relationship. So very interesting. So for that one, I pulled the 5 of Cups. So I will go ahead and share. And we will go to the 5 of Cups. So the fives are generally kind of like conflict cards. They're in the middle. So sometimes they're like kind of like being in limbo. 5 of Cups. So literally, right, loss, grief, regret, focusing on what has gone wrong, right? I think that that's like part of why she starts the album with this is like, here's like where it's at. And this is like where I started in relationships. Like I was a kid of divorce and I then like had my own divorce and like had all this arguing early on in my relationship and like decided that I did not want to like stay with that person even though we had a kid together and like stay in that relationship. So, yeah, and here it talks about the 5 of Cups speaks to grief. Something hasn't worked out. Important to acknowledge that. The same time reminds you that not everything is lost. There may still be support, connection, or possibility around you, even if it's hard to see. And again, like literally this card, right? We see kind of like blood, tears. It's very like fall coated. It's orange and black. We get this like tree that's in shadow. Someone's wearing like a very Grim Reaper outfit, like all black with like a black hood. And we kind of, I guess all of the people in these, no. So both of, so yeah, this one, it's like you don't see their like eyes. It's like their eyes have rolled in the back of their head is like the look of it. We just see the whites of their eyes. And again, we get kind of like the moon. So something's like the cups have knocked over, right? Like some stuff has gone down and she's kind of like reassessing, right? I think that that's kind of like what the song is about. There is this level of like, okay, well, now what? Like if that's not it, then like what am I doing? All right, so that one's Weather for Tennis. The second song is called Roommates. And I would say it's kind of about this like falling into ease with a partner after being together for a while and like raising kids together where you start to feel more like roommates. I think, yeah. So she like had a kid in her early 20s and then like ended that relationship, was like co-parenting, and then is with her like current husband now. They had 3 kids, and I think her kids are like slightly at an age now where they're like slightly more grown, like not under 5 anymore. And she does seem to be kind of like, again, reflecting on like, ugh, it's not like how it used to be, and like, how do we find ourselves in this relationship again? So she has, some of the lyrics are, I can barely mention it. Oh, that the beginning is, I can barely mention it without causing some ego trauma, but I know you're sending how I'm trying to give you, I know like you're getting it, that I'm trying to give you hints. Physical affection goes a long way with me. I don't want to quietly resent you. I just want the easy fix. And then she talks about like how and she has another song where she goes into this too, like, I only want the beginning of the relationship. Like, I don't want the end. I want the part where you say, God damn. I want the highlights, 10 out of 10. Like, she's talking a lot about, like, oh, I missed that, like, early part of the relationship, right? Maybe before we had kids together, we were getting to know each other. And, like, there was all of this, like, excitement and, like, yeah, affection or sex. And that now she goes on later in the song to kind of talk about, like, yeah, like masturbating or like getting herself off and like watching porn instead of like doing it with her partner, because she's like missing that affection or like feeling like she's not seen anymore by him. And she has like fully expressed that. So she like wrote all this music like with her current husband. So I don't think she's trying to, this isn't like a diss. I'm sure these are, but she talks about the like, oh, these are just some of the things that like go through my head. And so she does seem to really be kind of reckoning with like, okay, like, yeah, what does this like new part of our relationship look like? I'm kind of grieving what it used to be. And I kind of miss when it was just like all good, or all the highlights, as she says. So for that one, I pulled the Two of Cups. So in the card, right, we get twos are often about like partnership. We get this kind of like spiraling up imagery with the like intertwining snakes that are on here. The 2 cups are kind of like overflowing. Cups are about emotions and like balance. So it feels very appropriate, right? A balance between 2 people, connection built on mutual respect. Like clearly, right, like she very much respects him. She creates music with him. She's been with him for a while. They had kids together. Like she seems very happy with her life. But it also is like talks about both sides being present and willing. Like she's talked about on her like press tour about like, oh, like I didn't really know what it was like to have like healthy communication, or to like talk about things and have them get resolved, or like have to kind of like, yeah, what is it like to be seen by someone and like met as you truly are? Healthy connection requires both openness and choice. And I think that's really what she's talking about in her life. It's like, yeah, I was right. Early on, I was like, I chose this person. I was like open to them. But as we continue in our relationship, that level of openness, right, to getting to know each other and like seeing each other, like parenting together, like sometimes can feel like they're losing physical connection, or like things are just different now. And it sounds like there's a part of her that like grieves that kind of misses when things were maybe like simpler. All right. For the third song, it's called We Don't Talk. And she talks about her relationship with her family of origin, which is like a therapy term for like the family you grew up in. So like her biological family, but like really I just mean like the family she grew up in. And I think specifically she's like talking about her sister and that they don't talk anymore. I think so in the song, this sort of says that we're like from the same blood and the same home, but we're like different. And so that's sort of my own assumption. Again, I don't know if she has like confirmed that or anything. And she did do projects like with her sister Hilary Duff when she was like in doing like child acting. They were in a movie together and stuff. But yeah, I don't know what that's like now, so I don't necessarily want to speculate, but it kind of sounds like just from the lyrics that she's talking about her sister, perhaps also like her parents, because she later talks about like wishing that her dad loved her like fully. And so perhaps it's also him. But she says, we come from the same home, the same blood, a different combination, but the same lock. We don't talk. We don't talk about it. We don't talk about anything anymore. And she starts the song by saying, like, I don't even know like what it was or what was said, but kind of like we stopped talking and then like that was it. Like we've never like come back from that, or like almost again like a thing that I think a lot of people can relate to around like siblings or family connections is like you don't necessarily know what the like kicking off the like beginning of the like what the first thing that was said was, or even like in an argument. Like it's hard to remember exactly where it started, but she just kind of knows that like this is where it is right now. We don't talk. We don't talk about it. And that's like the title of the song. So that feels very relevant. So for this one, I pulled the 9 of Pentacles, which is going to be slightly more, it's not an obvious connection to me. So we get this like person that they kind of look like happy. They've like achieved the things they want to. Could be again like financial comfort, personal autonomy. Pentacles can be like coins or kind of like the pentacles are the earth sign. So like groundedness, again, like your physical things, your house, your life, your finances, like, and here it talks about personal autonomy. So it does seem like, yeah, it's interesting. So it says like this card reflects independence and self-defined success, which just seems like she has definitely had. It can point to a sense of stability you have built for yourself. The card invites you to enjoy what you've created without minimizing it. It also challenges narrow ideas of success, encouraging you to define abundance in a way that feels meaningful to you. That aspect of it is very interesting because I think a lot of people would say, like, oh, well, not talking to your family, like, that's not a version of success I want to have. But I think she has talked a lot about like boundaries and like not being in relationships with people that like don't feel, I want to say like productive. I don't mean that in like a capitalistic like productivity sense. I mean more of like you keep having the same arguments and they don't go anywhere kind of place. And it seems like that's almost what she is talking about in this song. It's like I don't really know exactly what happened, but we kind of always come to the same conclusion, which is that we don't talk and we don't talk about it. So there's even a level of like, yeah, like I'm not even gonna kind of like address the why, the how it happened, but I'm just kind of like where it is now. And it does seem like I said, I think from the outside it would look like she's had all these businesses. She had like she has lots of partnerships. She is like married with 4 kids. She like has done all this hard work. She was a child actor and did a lot of work as a kid, became like a Disney Channel star, had a music career, has continued to be in TV and film, is gonna like direct or executive produce things. Like she's clearly like doing a lot of stuff. I think like this album, like I was in New York in February when it came out and she was like everywhere, like her face was everywhere. Like it's a very big campaign and I think it from the again the outside it looks like very successful. And I do think there's a song later that kind of goes into this like defining abundance in a way that feels meaningful to you. Like I think she has like close friendships and community, and like she talks about friends she's had since a kid and like how they still talk and get along so well and like they support each other and all that kind of stuff. So I think this is kind of like yeah, she's actually like achieved a lot of things. She's had that like hard work of the rewards and now she has probably financial comfort and personal autonomy, especially I think around her music. Because I can imagine, I don't know if she's talked negatively kind of about being a child star, but most of the child stars that were a part of Disney had really intense contracts, had like you can't get out clauses, had a lot of things asked of them, and had particular types of music they were allowed to make or not make, and they signed contracts about it. So I think it's cool now that she and her husband kind of like created this album together and she's talking about things like she uses the term porn. She like talks about getting off, like there's talking about giving someone a head in the back of a bar. Like these are like, right, she's having more mature themes. She's talking about like parenting and like being with someone in a long-term relationship. Like these are things she was probably not singing about or allowed to sing about when she was 20. And so I think that's very cool in that sense, and interesting that this came up for this song. All right, for number 4, it's called Future Trippin', and it is what it sounds like. I would say it's about anxiety and always getting caught up in like the what ifs. Like she starts out by just saying like, I'm worried about shit that hasn't happened and I'm always like future tripping. She even talks about being a kid of divorce and having gotten divorced herself. Like it seems like she's kind of always like, oh well, like what if the shoe drops, and like what if I'm not with them anymore, and what if something goes wrong, or what if they cheat on me? And it's like she can recognize that those are anxiety that she future trips, right? But just kind of like trying to plan everything out, thinking about everything that could or might happen, and then getting caught up in that. But again, very interesting card that I pulled. I pulled the Lovers reversed for this one. And again, if we go with kind of the traditional view of the Lovers as like about love itself, but also it depicts two skeletons. And intertwined bodies. This image is very like till death do us part. So yeah, upright represents deep bonds, alignment of values, conscious connection and choice, decisions. Are you in alignment with who you truly are? Yeah, I'm trying to think about the reversal of that, the kind of like, do you have too much or too little of that like connection? I feel like it's just very about like her, again, future tripping about like, are we going to be forever? Like, is this it? Like, can I just like chill, or like, am I just always going to be worried that like you're going to leave me for someone else, or like something's going to happen, you're going to find a younger girl that's someone else you want to be with? She talks about that in another song. I'm going to pull my upside down tarot book real quick to see if there's anything else for the Lovers reverse that I think is interesting. Relationship, sexuality, personal beliefs or values, those are kind of like the themes associated. So yeah, I think it is this kind of play of like, you're in a relationship and like it feels good, but also sometimes you get like worried about it ending, or less intimacy, or that they might not feel love for you forever, or you might not feel that way. I think right with sexuality, like I feel like she talks about like, yeah, like wondering if there's still physical attraction, like she misses physical connection. Yeah, just less opportunities to like have that side of yourself be front and center. Again, when you're like parenting young kids, like being worried that the passionate phase of her relationship is ending. Yeah, I think with the personal beliefs and the values, like she seems very clear about those, and like the relationship seems supportive of those things, or like she doesn't necessarily question those aspects of it. I think it's more that, again, like with my therapist lens on, I would be like, yeah, she like experiences anxiety, and she knows that like that's not necessarily anything that her partner is doing, but that because of her like trauma, being a kid of divorce, as she says, like it's hard to not think about it when that's been something that's been so prevalent in your life since you were quite young. I think it's just like a bit of like hyper focus on the relationship too, and sometimes that's where her anxiety lies. That would be what I would say. For the next one, it's called Growing Up. And for this, I pulled the Page of Swords. So she talks about growing up over time with her close friend. When everybody's gone, they got busy and moved on. We'll face it on our own. I guess this is growing up. And I think she's talking about like friendships. She probably also is talking about like her own romantic relationship, or just other people in her life that like some people have left, right? Like I'm not she's not friends with all those people anymore. Like some people have gone or come in, but like this is part of growing up, and that it's like not all bad either. And that I think like she does seem to have like feel very supported and like resilient in her relationship and her marriage. She talks about that like working with her husband on her album was like one of the things that helped her feel safe and secure to like to put out the music that she wanted to, that was actually like relevant to her now. and like that she thought would be, again, like important, meaningful to her and like perhaps to other people. So yeah, the Page of Swords for this one. Curiosity, observation, communication, new ideas, alert and questioning, gathering information. When I think of swords, that is sometimes where anxiety shows up, where they talk about like staying open, asking questions, not rushing to conclusions. It does sort of seem like part of growing up is that it seems more clear, like who's in her life and who's going to stay versus not, like what people and values are important to her, and that like communication and curiosity about ourselves and each other is like important to her, and that she doesn't really want to be in relationships where that is not present. And again, like even just looking at the Page of Swords card, like it's a very, I would say, like chill, self-assured looking person. Again, we get kind of like moonlight imagery. I know that Hilary Duff has stated that she really like relates to the Star card or like resonates with it, which is a very like hopeful, optimistic, looking towards the future, but also like a nighttime card, right? Like you can't usually see stars during the daytime. This card is very like serene, I would say, when I look at it. Like it's just very like, oh yeah, everything's like still, or you know, there's a light breeze, but like nothing is yeah, like knocking us over or like coming in with all these ideas. It's very just like, huh, interesting. Okay. And it does seem like that's how she's treating some of these like people that have gone and got busy and moved on, and like I can face that. I have my own support system. I can do that. So the next one is the Optimist, which is funny because I'm like, with her saying that she relates to the Star card, I'm like ever the optimist. And for this one, I pulled the Devil, which like I kind of love, but she talks about in this song, like basically I would say like being the mediator in her family and like always seeing the best in people. This is the song where she says, like, just part of the chorus, like, I wish I could sleep on planes and that my father would really love me. I learned which way you turned your back to let go of eye contact and which bottles made you feel most immune. Like, sounds like she experienced someone that had alcoholism and just kind of like a, yeah, I'm only thinking of therapy terms right now. But having like learning how to like tiptoe around someone, right? Like whoever that was. And that she would always kind of like be ever the optimist and being trying to resolve conflict in her life. In one of the other songs we have already talked about, she talks about being the key to people's like handcuffs, being the one that would help other people work through their trauma or like be supportive and perhaps like, yeah, engage with them in that way or see that like, oh, they could be better and they could do this. And I think this song is her like, I mean, interesting because again, the Devil card, you know, the imagery I'll show you on this one, but the imagery on this particular one is very, I don't know, very traditional Christian devil looking, but then we have kind of like that the devil is a mask, right? We kind of see the person underneath in this image. And yeah, I think like the devil often represents like feeling trapped, and then like illusion, right? Like the idea of a mask. And like it seems like she was good at looking under the mask, but now kind of she realizes that being the optimist also means that like sometimes you're ignoring like the red flags. But yeah, often in the Devil card in tarot that it depicts like a devil seated on a throne and then like has like two people attached to the devil with chains, like two human figures that are attached with chains to the devil. But it often like is meant to represent that there's a little bit of like I want to say like a victim mindset, mostly in that like often what it depicts is that the chains, it looks like they could actually slip out of them. Like the chains are very loose on them. Sometimes it's like around their head and it's like very big, or like around their wrists or feet. And that, yeah, there's like narratives or systems that keep us stuck. And so this card is very much about like, where do you feel bound to people or systems? And like, are you questioning whether the constraints are as fixed as they seem? awareness is the first step towards release, right? I think she's looking back and being like, yeah, like I was an optimist and maybe I still am, but I now see that like that doesn't always serve me, or that perhaps some people don't deserve it. So interesting that this card came up for that, because yeah, it does seem like she's trying to reconcile that like part of her that wants to like help people and like fix situations, or like again like kind of be hopeful about it, but that has also like been a road to disappointment sometimes. The next card or the next song is called You from the Honeymoon. And again, I think it's very much about like missing like the honeymoon stage, like missing her husband like from the honeymoon. Like she talks about like, oh, if I was in a wedding dress, or if we were in the black limo, and like these literal scenes of like when right after you get married or when you're getting married. She says, in some ways, we're closer than we've been ever. In some ways, I miss us then. Remember how we said it would never change? Well, it did, and it didn't, if you still want to be in it. Where, again, I think she's very much like trying to reconcile this part of her that is like, you know, wishes she could go back to the early stages of the relationship that were like so fun and light and like maybe a little more chaotic and energetic, and even just wishes like she could be that person again. And that, of course, they said it would never change, that they would hold on to that throughout their relationship. And then she says, well, of course it did and it didn't. Like, and sort of offers the question of like, if you still want to be in it, right? She's talking a lot about choice here. And for this one, I pulled the Hermit, which again, I'm like, so interesting because, yeah, right. The Hermit is generally a card that denotes like some level of isolation or leaving your situation to go out and seek the truth or guidance. Like it does seem like she's done a lot of like reflection and therapy and like self-work and looking at her relationships and attachment and all of this stuff. So it seems like she's done a lot of that. And again, the picture depicts here like a person with a lantern, like you shine the light on things, right? That finding the truth, stepping away from the external noise in order to find clarity and wisdom, rest, reflection, distance from constant demands, solitude as a choice. Like I even think I can imagine that like making this album, right, where like maybe you are writing songs or you're in the studio or you're doing these different things or even like going on a press tour, like kind of right, leaving your most likely day-to-day life of like parenting still like young kids and going out on a press tour and having like photo shoots and doing music videos. Like there is a bit of this that's like that is, I think, like I'm sure part of it can feel very like disconnecting because it's kind of treating you as a pop star and less about you as a like individual person. But all of the imagery that she has like in this album and in the music videos is very like in the roommates one, it's like in a house, and then at the end the house, like the wall falls back and she walks outside. But it is very like domestic and like day to day. I think on tour now she like her outfits and a lot of the energy is a lot more like pop star vibes, which is fun because that's like that's what happens to her character in the Lizzie McGuire movies, that she's a normal person and then she gets mistaken for a pop star and then she gets to kind of like try it out, be a pop star. And so I know actually she's like talked about that, the being on this tour. She's like, oh, I get to like live my pop star life. But yeah, I'm like, for her, like that might be this level. I was like, okay, I like hermited, right? I kind of like, I wrote my music. I had these, I like felt all these things and like kind of like packaged it up and put it into this album. And now I have a tour and I get to kind of like share it with people. That the Hermit is very much about like, yes, you withdraw intentionally from society or from your like constant demands, your day to day life. Often it's like, oh, you go like to a monastery or you go into the woods. And but that the thing is with the Hermit is that you come back and you like educate others, you teach them or you share the information. And so I feel like that is very emblematic of like her being on a tour now, is like now she gets to like have fun with it, right? And like not necessarily just fall into this like kind of like heavy emotional like trauma stuff, but that she gets to like play songs from previous albums, and like she wears like a lot of sequins, but then also is like fur and like more mature outfits than she used to wear, and like she gets to kind of like have fun with all of that and kind of like lean into the pop star persona for a certain amount of time, which again I'm sure makes it like more bearable. And that, yeah, I imagine like again she hadn't put out an album in 11 years, that it's exciting to get to like share that with other people now after kind of not either feeling safe to do that or wanting to, or just, yeah, not really feeling it previously. Okay, the next song is Holiday Party. And basically she's talking about in this one, like, I'm afraid my relationship will fall apart, I'll get cheated on, like kind of all this like relational trauma again, anxiety coming up, but like specifically about the relationship. And it's like literally about like she imagines him like leaving a holiday party and like going home with someone else. And it's like very evocative language, because she says like, in my head you live another life where you fuck all my friends and wish someone else could have been your wife. I'm sorry for letting it get the best of me again. I'm back at it again, questioning my belief in the good guy. Where again, I feel like this is her dealing with her kind of like relational trauma and the way that her anxiety manifests, which is that like it makes her very questioning of even a thing that feels pretty like stable. And again, I'm obviously like making a lot of assumptions, but it seems like she feels very like stable and supported by her partner, but there's still that part of her that like questions that, because I think maybe she felt that before and then she got to see later that like, no, the devil mask was on, right? Like there was someone underneath that and I didn't see it, right? That's again kind of the like shadow side of being the optimist, is that sometimes you can see the best in people, but they may not live up to that in the time that you spend together or ever. But yeah, so this one again, it's like very, it's like a specific story where she goes to a holiday party and kind of like imagines that he's going home with someone else, or that she's gonna like find out. And for this one I pulled the Hanged Man, which again was like very interesting, because it's almost like she's thinking about like his, like what could have been his life, right? Like she says like, in my head you live another life where you're like having sex with my friends and like you wish you could be with someone else, like where she's very much just like, why would you, I guess kind of like, why would you want to be with me when perhaps like, oh, I have this relational trauma, or like I still worry about these things, or like I'm always like questioning like, oh, is this like really, is this like really as good as it feels, or like can I trust fully, like, right, I'm sorry for letting it get the best of me again, right? It seems like that this is like a thing she deals with, and I'm sure he's aware of that. But yeah, that she's, and the Hanged Man, right, is often about like new perspectives, pausing and seeing things differently. Card often appears when unlearning is needed, when old assumptions or dominant perspectives no longer hold. It may ask you to sit with discomfort, to release the need for immediate answers, and to consider whose perspective has been centered and whose has not. Again, like so appropriate for what she's talking about, where it's like, yeah, like you have to maybe unlearn that like people are just going to disappoint you. Like this particular person seems like they're not going to, seems like they're in it, they've made a choice, they, right, you're parenting, you live together, you have kids together, you're creating an album together, like there's a lot of, I imagine, again, safety and trust within that. And it sounds like she feels bad for still like questioning sometimes that like he's in it for real, or like still wants to be with her, or that like even with kind of being in like more mundane day-to-day life where you like live in the suburbs with your kids and have like backyard chickens and that's your life, that like people, someone would be happy with that, and maybe even that she would be happy with that. But yeah, that sitting with discomfort aspect just seems like really what this song is about, is like oof, man, right? Like I can get so caught up in it again. I go to a holiday party and I'm just like, there's all these questions again, or kind of like perhaps like there was an incident that happened in a prior relationship or something where that's like a particular worry of hers or like a thing that she has seen played out. But right, this card's about unlearning old assumptions, right? Like that is what she's talking about, is trying to look at it from a different perspective, right? Trying to not like question everything or kind of like worry that she's gonna get cheated on. For the next card, and the song is Mature. This was the first one that she put out as a single, which I think is like interesting. I kind of see it as like a real fuck you to someone because I would say it's like, I mean, so she's reflecting on relationships where she was told you're so mature for your age. Like that's where the title of the song comes from. And like getting, she doesn't say that outright, but like getting taken advantage of. She talks about like lines he would say, or that like she sees him with like the newest, youngest version of her. And like she's there's a music video for this one where she like sees herself when she was young. And so it's like the current her, the mature her, seeing like the younger version of her and seeing how someone is like still out there like taking advantage of young girls. Like again, it sounds like it's about a particular person and scenario, but she literally says she looks like she could be your daughter like me before I got smarter. And then there's another line later where she says like all of your girls but blonder. Where again she's like really, she's like talking about herself, but it also sounds like she's talking about like a person that does this. And again, like I'm saying, like it sounds like she's talking about someone in particular from her past. Like it's giving older man in the music industry that's still out there like dating young girls or like taking advantage of young stars, pop star kind of things. Also, I'm like, yeah, she released this as like the first single, and I'm like, it's very like strong and like interesting. It's definitely not the most like boppable song from her album. So it's like, is I like when I first heard it, I was like, interesting. Like not like a song I'm just gonna like sing out for fun all the time. I mean, like it's pretty, like I said, like it's got really good lines in it, and it is, but it does feel like a very like I'm coming back, I'm doing an album, I'm doing it my way under like my own, right, like a certain label now, and maybe I'm not under contract with certain people anymore. And again, those are like assumptions I'm making, but being like, I see you out there doing those things and just like continuing the same patterns that you've done, which is like finding the next young hot thing to like make money off of. And also that this phrase, like you're mature for your age, that when she was young, she saw that as like I'm special, right? Like I'm so mature for my age. And now she like looks back on it, it's like, ew, yuck, disgusting. Like telling someone that means like you're inherently dating a child. That's too harsh, but like dating, like you're saying that like, wow, like you're so mature for your age. Like, wow, I'm going to treat you like you're an adult, even though like you're very young and I am older. Again, those are assumptions I'm making, but that's the vibe I'm getting. So for that one, I pulled the Page of Wands reversed. And yeah, let's go to that one. Wands are at the end. Here's the page here. So right upright, it would be like enthusiasm, new ideas, exploration, right? Even like maybe that was her when she was younger. It's like, oh, like I feel special. What's this possibility? Oh, I could date this person, or I could like get an album with them. I could contract with them, whatever it is, trying something new or following an idea and just kind of like going with it. It says without overthinking it. Right? Wands are all about like the spark, the creativity, the ideas, the fire in the room, right? Passion and kind of like being exploration and openness. And it says you do not need to have everything figured out to begin, right? Which like certainly is true when we are young. Like it's like, yeah, why, like go for it. That's literally one of her songs. Why not? From the past. And yeah, I feel like in reverse, she's like, this is why not. Like this is why. Like now I look back and I'm like, I totally see what game you were playing. Like she even has like a line that's like this in the song. Like I see like the yeah, the deal, the bargain. She uses some words like that, like the deal you're making, and like I see what you're doing. And now I'm like grossed out by it. And at the time I felt, special, or like this was just for me, or that like, oh, I was so unique. I'm mature for my age. And now I just look back on it and it's like gross. So kind of love that that's what she put out as her single, even if it's like maybe to me not the most like boppable song. Okay, two more. So the next song is Tell Me That Won't Happen. And this one, it seems like she's reflecting on a relationship and thinking about, again, kind of like her current relationship and if it will really last, like having doubt. But it seems like more, again, in this like way of anxiety, the kind of like what ifs again coming up for her, and that, and like, I know you so well and you know me so well. So tell me that like this thing I'm afraid of won't happen, right? Tell me that won't happen. Like, I get worried about this, but can you like reassure me? Or like, do you really still want to like be with me? She says, I know your need to disagree. I know how you hate the vegan shit and tarot cards. And I wrote, shout out to tarot. Because again, like, yeah, apparently she's into tarot cards and has like created her own kind of like deck for her tour, which is super cool. And I think she starts the song by saying like, I know, it's like one line, and then the second one is like, I know that you're not going to call your mom, or like, I know how often you don't call your mom, or something like that, where she's like, I see you, like we've been in a relationship for a while, right? Like I know you and you know me. And so she then later is like asking like, will I want something new? Will you want something new? I'm worried that I felt everything I'll ever feel and I won't. Again, kind of like looking back on the relationship and being like, this has been so good and so full, and like it was exciting, and then like we were doing this thing together, we got married and we were together and that was great, and then we had kids and that was great, and we're like in it now and it's in the day to day and it's like going a little bit easier, but like how do we, yeah, are we reconnecting? Like how do we do this thing where, are we doing this forever? Like I think she even says in the song something about like being 80, like are we 80 proof? Like saying like, are we going to make it to 80 like in this relationship? Like it's hard for me to believe. Like, do you think that that's going to happen? And for this one I pulled the Five of Swords, which I'm like, classic overthinking, and just the fives of it all being very like anxiety, tension, like perhaps like unresolved things. It says the card asks you to consider what the conflict is really about whether the way it's being handled is worth it. Not every battle needs to be fought, and not every victory is meaningful. I just sort of think of like, if we look at this card, that's kind of like a person, and then there's like a shadow, again, kind of like a Grim Reaper, where it's like she's literally being like haunted by like, I think like things from her prior relationship, or even like, again, her family of origin, like being a kid of divorce, where she's like, it's hard for me to believe that something's going to continue for a long time, because historically for me and for the people around me that has not been true. And so it is this kind of like, ooh, like there's a tension there, and it sounds like a lot of times for her that's like an internal tension. But then in this song in particular, right, she's kind of like asking like, will we make it? Are you still interested? Am I going to still be interested? Like, it's been this long. Like, can we go for longer? Like, are we going to still want the same things? Are we going to still want to be together? And just that feeling of like unknown is scary. Again, the swords are all about like thoughts and communication. And like in the fives, we're just very like stuck in it, in that like feeling of limbo. And so finally, the last song is called Adult Sized Medium. And it's literally like an adult sized medium fleece, I think she says, like an oversized fleece when she was a kid, or thinking back on being like 20 years old and like the struggles of like, I'm sure, like being a teenager. Like Lizzie McGuire in the show, she's in middle school. Maybe in reality, she was like slightly older than that, but like literally being like in your teenage years on a show that's about being in your teenage years and being like an awkward middle schooler, and just being so in the public eye, like doing all of these films, being on a regular TV show, making albums, being a Disney Channel kid, like just a lot of attention on her. And I know she's negatively talked about like the press and paparazzi as like trying to, that took a toll on her life. And I know now, I think she's pretty protective about it with her kids. But just like the struggles of growing up and then the struggles of like having that be documented for the world in tabloids. Like she says things about like her gender, hiding under an oversized fleece, like, and then she's kind of again like for the last song looking at like, oh, that's what it was and that was hard. But now I'm on the other side of it and it's like it's still hard. It's just different. She says, now on the other side of cherry flavored chapstick, there's some grayish highlights. Or she says, I remember it all and I remember nothing. How did we get here? Was it luck or something? Was it luck or something? And of course, this is her like title of the album. And I like that she ends with this song because it is this very like retrospective of like, here's where I started and like, here's how it was really hard then, and now I can kind of like more openly talk about that as someone that went through it and is like no longer going through that level of it. And I have some distance and I've had some therapy and I'm in a stable relationship and perhaps I have some distance from some like family members that weren't very helpful or healthy at the time. And that again, like she can acknowledge what was hard then and like have compassion for herself. And she's saying like, but also I feel lucky now. Like, how did I get here to this particular life where maybe things don't feel as like hard or tumultuous anymore is kind of like the vibe that I get, right? It sounds like this aspect of her of being a kid of divorce and like then going through that herself at a pretty young age with like a young kid just really impacted her. And I'm like, she's definitely in the era of, she's like probably an elder millennial. She's not that much older than me, but of like where you knew people that had divorce that were getting divorced, but it was still like maybe you didn't, it wasn't totally normalized then, and that you felt that was very hard on a kid. So yeah, for this one I pulled the King of Cups, which felt like so perfect because of course the king is kind of like the culmination here, but also we have the cups as like the emotional balance, the feelings, the maturity, control over feelings, and calm leadership. Like that definitely feels like where she is now, like emotional steadiness. Like she has these, like the feelings are present but not overwhelming. She's not hiding from it anymore, right? She's able to see it and see the past and kind of like acknowledge it and have curiosity about it, but it doesn't like overwhelm her and like her body and her emotions and like everything day to day. It says, yeah, the card can point to handling situations with calm or offering support in a way that feels grounded and reliable. I do get a very like grounded vibe from her and just the way that she talks about like her family and her life now. Like she talks a lot about like having chickens and like having backyard chickens and like having a garden, and like she grew up running around barefoot and as the like come home when it's dark kind of kid, or just like making a lot of having fun with friends and stuff like that. And it seems like she has tried to create that for like her own, in her own ways, in her own life, while also being someone that like I'm sure the paparazzi still hounds. And yeah, in the last line it says, are you allowing yourself to feel or just managing the surface? Like it does seem like right part of what this album is about is like acknowledging the anxieties or like the trauma and the relational stuff that she's gone through, and that wasn't just hers but was like her family's and her ex-husband's and all this stuff, and then feeling like, all right, like I feel like I have a handle on myself now. And I can kind of see that, yeah, like I'm not sure how I got here, but it feels good. It feels good where I am. All right, well, I'll stop sharing so we can pull our last card. So I thought for the last card, so yeah, this is the Snag Tarot deck. I'll link that in the show notes. But I want to pull a card for one of her re-record songs. So I'm going to pull that up and I'll probably have to look at the lyrics real quick. I mean, I kind of want to do it for Why Not, because that's the song that's like playing in my mind right now after I said that. So we'll say we're pulling it for the Why Not song, and then I'll pull up the lyrics and try to make the music connection. Okay. This is a song from 2003 originally. Okay, I pulled the Three of Wands. So this song is very like, I feel like it's like her trying to convince herself to like not have anxiety and kind of like having a crush, maybe. So it's like, why not take a crazy chance? Why not do a crazy dance? If you lose the moment, you might lose a lot. So why not? And then I could be the one for you. Oh, yeah, maybe yes, maybe no. So definitely, I would say like sort of about like having a crush and kind of trying to convince that person, like, why not? Like, date me. Why not? Like, why not me? So yeah, for the Three of Wands, I will share again so we can look at her. So here we are. So yeah, very fiery looking, progress, looking ahead with confidence. I do feel like that's very much that song. It's like, again, like she's kind of trying to convince herself, like, why not? Like, why not me? Like, I could do that. I could be that type of person. I could be like the one that you choose. And that it says Three of Wands suggests something's already in motion. Again, with wands, it's like that fire element. Even what the card looks like itself is like you're very much like looking out over something that's like coming to fruition, or a place that you're going to walk or go. It says it encourages patience, but also trust in the direction you have chosen. Growth takes time and not everything is immediately visible. So I love that. So that's for the Why Not song. So go ahead and go listen to it on her Mine EP now. All right, and we are super long today. So that's our collective reading for the week. I will be heading over to Patreon right now to draw an additional card that's related to another one of her earlier iconic songs. So if you want to see that exact card and what it means for your energy this week, click the Patreon link below and join us for the rest of the reading. So weekly episodes go out on Mondays. We get guest episodes about once a month. You'll be having a guest episode right before this, and then we'll have another one next month in August. So every episode is recorded on video. Those go out on Spotify and YouTube. Otherwise, you can find the audio wherever you get your podcasts. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the podcast, please fill out my form to be a guest in the show notes. And links for the decks I use will always be in the show notes and on Patreon if you want to look at them or purchase them. And thanks for joining me today on Everyday Tarot. Tune in every Monday to check out the latest episode. You can email me, me@CamilleASaunders.com with your thoughts, questions, and more. All right, see you soon. Bye-bye.